Alrighty, hello. Welcome to another Alana's Corner on manga and books, comics and all that stuff. And I figured we'd start off with, before we get into that, we're going to discuss mostly manga and anime here. So, here's my own little written list of what I understand. It's a drawing I did a while ago. Or what I understand about anime and manga. I'm not going to say, this is just what I know. So I might not know everything. I'm still learning, like everybody. Like everybody who lives in the West who doesn't know the whole story. I think I would recommend some books if you want to try to understand manga, or even anime. Well, mostly studying manga, but one of the books is definitely there was a manga expedition in Britain. I'm so sad I didn't get to go because I live in Australia, so let me see. It was, let's see, yes, this book is the company to that manga expedition that was held in the Setai Expedition manga, held in the Sainsbury Exhibition Gallery at the British Museum on the 23rd of May to the 26th of August 2009. So the years are nearly ending, so I might as well talk about that. I wish I could have gone. It sounded like it was an awesome expedition. It had so many different manga cars, it wasn't just one. Unlike when we had this manga expedition in Sydney, which was awesome. It was mostly dedicated to this guy, Tetsu Novel Manga or Tetsu Uzaka, I was like. Anyway, they had an expedition and they had this book. It's a really good book if you want to learn a bit more about manga's history. I definitely recommend it because it's also got a bit of the anime history. Seriously, if we didn't have manga, we wouldn't have anime. So read the dang book. It's good for you to learn. Don't just assume you know everything. It's never good to assume you know everything because then somebody's going to come around and tell you, no, wait a minute, that's wrong. This is right. Never good to do that. So I'm not going to pretend I know everything, but I can tell you this was a very good read. I would recommend it. For instance, the anime history in here. The history of anime. Or I will show you a page. I don't know if you can read any of that. Look at all that. It's all a lot of history there. You want me to read all that? There's even more. There's going to be onto more pages. All of that. That is history written right there. Not all of it history, but I mean that's some of it. Alright, I'll read you some of it because apparently people don't want to read books anymore, which is sad. You should really read more books. Books and manga and stuff. If we didn't have them, we wouldn't have half the movies and stuff. Like, for instance, all the Marvel movies you like are done by comic books. So, hence, you might want to go back and read some of them. Because some of the stories are just based around them that you see in the movies. So, don't diss a book. Because books was what give you half of the movies and manga you were after. The really good ones, I mean. And sometimes the story's even better in the book than it was in the movie or the animation show. So I would recommend taking this book in and giving it a good read. First, I will read some of it for you. I am probably not going to be the best at reading out aloud. I'm better at reading in my own head. The history of anime is inexplicably linked to the story of manga. Although Japanese animation has a long history, the development of anime in Japan goes hand in hand with the post-war blossoming of manga. Debates are ongoing about the first Japanese animation, which many date back to the first decade of the 20th century. But the accepted starting point is, oh god lord, it's going to be a lot of words I can't read out loud for you guys, oh god. Oh god, I'm bad with names. It's Imwa Mosu the Doomsman. I do not know this title. Done in 1917. Wow, that's old. However, this work may differ to what we know as anime today. The anime industry as we know it today has its roots in the manga era comics films of companies such as Toei, other words, Toei Animation. They're the first ones then. Toei Animation, which has regularly producing feature-length animation films from 1950s onwards. Wow, Toei has been around a long time. Have they become Funimation now? Well, Toei Animation, big story. I guess Funimation works on them a lot. You know when you see this cat with a funny little hat show up? Sometimes? No? You didn't see him? Oh, that's a sad. Anyway, let me see. That's their little logo, I think, at some point. Toei Animation is big guys, which is regularly producing feature-length animation films. Read that already. Toei Animation was significant because it was one of the first companies to reach out to the manga industry for inspiration. Good Lord, I am sorry. I am butchering words here. I'm not great at words. I'm better at drawing. That's why I'm an artist, not a writer. Writers at least a bit better with their words. I mean, they can tell you words and get you hooked on the story, or that you want to sit there and listen to them talking about their story and then writing it out, and yeah. Anyway. Let me see, where was I? Yes, and then industry inspiration. Also instituted a training program for animators and directors that enabled the proliferation of anime companies in the 1970s and the 1980s, including Studio Ghibli. Nobuo Makaze, co-founder of Studio Ghibli, often describes his films such as Spirited Away as manga era rather than anime, even when they are not based on manga sources. As the genetic term suggests, the early manga era had much in common with the Japanese manga industry. Toei Animation worked in partnership with Mike. I will say it because I cannot read the word today. Sorry. Where was I? I lost my spot. I'm rereading this word 10 million times. Alright, yes. They worked in concentration with manga artists, perhaps most famous with Tezuka Osamu. The guy who did Astro Boy, you know. He came up with, in 1928 to 1989, that's how long he lived, I think. The God of Manga. So, if it wasn't for him, he's produced a lot of... He's the one who got a lot of your anime and manga into the world, so be grateful for him. Japan certainly is. I think the rest of us should be too. He didn't just do Astro Boy, he's done a million other things. I will get a book about him in a minute. We're making the video too long, me reading this the whole time. Yeah, he's done a lot. Yeah, this movie I do not know the name of. I did it. Learning, also him learning from the experience. If it says here, if I'm reading this correctly, I suggest you get this book yourself so that you can read it much better without me butchering it the whole time. Good book though, I recommend it. Those who worked on it, he then came up with his own company, which he called Mushu Production. Mushi? That almost sounds like Mushishi. I love that anime, by the way, and the manga is awesome to recommend. The Mushi Productions, Mushi Po for short. Those who worked in Mushi Po have claimed that they were the first to coin the term anime to describe the television anime series being produced at their studio, most famously Astro Boy. However, Astro Boy was also known as TV manga, television manga. During its initial run in the 1960s, animation was expensive to make, and cost-cutting measures employed at Mushi Pro ensured that telebi, which means television manga, became an accurate description of these early anime. If the animation is the art of drawn movements, then the early anime could be argued to be pinning between the stillness of manga and the movement required by animation. For example, Tezuka regularly employed techniques like using still shots of his characters. He also sometimes moved only mouths or individual body parts, and used the camera techniques such as zooms and pans to give movement to otherwise still images. In these ways, Tezuka's new anime style saved his studio money, while also creating aesthetic links between manga sources and anime on Japanese television. And I'll leave it there, because otherwise I won't be able to review any more stuff. So, recommend this book. It's thick though, I warn you, you're going to have a lot of time needing to read this. But I highly recommend it if you want to learn a bit about manga. It has a bit of an anime link to that too, so I recommend that. Also, if you want to learn some more about anime and manga, I really recommend you learn about this guy. His stuff. Really need to read this book. There's also, if you can ever find this book, it comes with its own little bonus DVD, so you can watch about him. So, highly recommend. Let's see. Now, Tetman's, we just do one page, because my god, otherwise I'm never going to be covering everything I want to cover today. Okay. Which will now answer it is important to understand that Osamu Tezuka is not the founder of Japanese animation. Yeah, true. I mean, you have to be... he's not exactly the founder, because, animation was already sort of there, as was manga, but it's thanks to him that a lot of more of it came in, because he was one of the first ones, so he's not the first one to coin it in there. Pot day, recommend. Iced tea. I might put a bit of lemonade in there to make it sweeter, that's what I did, but I wouldn't recommend everyone else doing that. If you don't want much sugar in there, I would definitely recommend that, but I like a bit of sweetness, so I put lemonade in there to have sweetness. Not my favorite tea. I'm usually having my teas different. I like to have a bit of honey in there. Let's see. Okay, it's important to understand that Osamu Tezuka is not the founder of Japanese animation. There were animators in Japan before him, as well as those working at the same time. His works, however, revolutionized the industry by transferring recognized cinematic forms of expression from the silver screen to both his manga and his anime in order to make his stories more appealing to his infinitely young audience. In Tezuka's anime explicitly, camera connects such as close-ups, pan, tilt, and so forth competition to the creation of a realistic feel to his animated features, though indirectly they cause all sorts of production problems. He also played with various lighting to enhance the mood. By Tezuka's time, manga and anime had ceased to be throwaway items. They had been before the war. It is Tezuka's greatest success that he recognized the need to interject a wider perspective and social awareness into his work. This was important after the war, when Disney Animation was contributing to the God, I can't read that word. I am so sorry. Of the Japanese popular culture, and the US support reconstruction dominating Japan. I do not know much about this history. I'm going to have to believe it, and whatever anyone else tells me. It is no exaggeration to say it is largely to the genius of that in those formative years of the country's reconstruction, that Japanese animation and manga have developed into a form largely without comparison in the world. Not compensation in the world. Influenced by this information of Disney, but guided by his own emotional compass, Tezuka did not demand absolute rigidity of his staff. He did not, unlike Disney, who kind of did a lot of control of his staff from what I'm hearing in the background. Not as nice as well. I don't want to go into it. I don't know much about Disney, so I'll just stand on that. but apparently he did not demand an absolute reading of his stuff, but he allowed them to explore their own creative process and unique styles. These were animators who would later go on to create an entire industry impersonated by their beloved teacher. Today, much of the manga and anime business stands...
When you have time, open that window, please.
Right, I will do that. I will do that now. Give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Opening the window, yes. Window now opened. It is opened. Okay, back to what we were doing. Much to the manga and anime business stands far from the final system to which truth breathed. Yes, so today, much of the manga and anime business stands far removed from the fragile system into which Tezuka breathes life. And from some perspectives, imagination seems to have largely given over to the sort of routine against which Tezuka railed. However, there still remain strands of master's imagination woven throughout the islands of Japan, and I have faith that even today many of his professional descendants remain true to the standards by which he built an industry. So it is thanks to him that a lot of anime manga came into the world, because apparently after the war Japan was losing a lot of their stuff, a lot of their things, because I don't know much about it, but they were losing a lot of it, and he breathed it all back into life again. So we owe much of a lot of the anime manga we get today to him inspiring a lot of other artists. Heck, I mean, I can understand one expedition saying when he passed on, all of Japan was in mourning, because he was the one who breathed so much life back into the anime manga industry that so many loved. So, and there was a story each and every one of them loved. So, okay. Alrighty, let's see. Yeah, there's a lot to this guy, and I would recommend this book. Another little book I picked up, as I was telling you before. I picked this up when I went to see the exhibition that was in Sydney a while ago. I was a teenager, and I'm in very love with a lot of his works. Not so much his Astro Boy, but I do like some of his Astro Boy stuff, so it's cute, it's weird, it's funny. I love his style. It's in between where anime started. It's basically where a lot of anime artists got inspired by. If you saw her hand come out of nowhere and just pet me on the head, that was my mom, so that one was being nice. So it was a hot day and she's worried I'm going to collapse again, so she's constantly reminding me to drink. Don't think it's going to happen that easily again. Anywho, back to what we were doing. It's another little book I've done. This was on his expedition, which I absolutely loved. I was so inspired. He's done a series I really like. I think I've talked to you about it a few times. I'm probably going to talk about it a million more times if I have a chance. Is Blackjack. I love Blackjack, but he also did, which apparently I have not been able to see the anime come to Australia yet, or I've missed it. But I have the manga and I love it, and I managed to get my mom to read it and she likes it too, so. The manga, if you have a cool mom like mine, get them to read this one. It's a good story. It's an old school manga, as like I said, it's not new. But as I said, I would say it again, and I've said it a million more times, this guy really is someone to respect. It's no wonder Japan has museums dedicated to this guy. He is to be respected, especially if you're a manga and anime fan. You really should respect this guy. Because seriously, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have half even the genres that we have for manga and anime. Yeah, let's see. Like, I can tell you the foreword for this book. The two-section foreword. First and foremost, ever the Tezuka Productions would like to express their supreme... I'm bad at words, I told you. First time. Okay, I will start this again. Express their supreme pleasure, honor, and appreciation to the National Gallery of Victoria for presenting Tezuka, the marvel of manga. if Tezuka Zaka, oh god, I can't say names. I'm not doing him service. But he is someone you really should respect if you're an anime manga fan. You really shouldn't be so sour at him if you think he is some problem or something. He is someone a lot of, especially in Japan, being as your animes and stuff, he is the one a lot of Japan appreciates. So if anyone ever says anything bad about this guy, I'm like going, it's kind of like people who diss Marvel's Stan Lee, actually. I mean, he's a big guy. He did a lot of things. I mean, I don't know him personally as a person, but his work is something you should appreciate him for. I mean, he even managed to get cameos in some of the things because he's such a big deal. And everyone... So, Tezuka has a big respect, and I think we should all respect him to a degree. I mean, if he, as a person, I don't know what he was like, so I can't say we can respect him as a person, but maybe someone in Japan could tell us that he was a highly respectable young man. But apparently, from the last thing I was reading, he treated his staff decently and inspired them to do their own thing. Not many teachers can do that, I say, so I'd say he sounded like he was a pretty good teacher, and not just, you know, a good creator. So, back to this again, as I was reading. So was with us today. Okay, if Tezuka Zaku was with us today on this commemorative occasion, he would be extremely happy. About 30 years ago, when he was still alive, there was an offer to have an exhibition of Tezuka's original artwork drawn from many of his stories. Naturally, the organizers wanted materials from his manga, including Astro Boy and Kimber the White Lion. It was way before The Lion King, so if anyone says that it was a rip-off of The Lion King, has obviously never really read the history behind it. It was a manga first, and then it became an anime, and it was definitely not a rip-off of The Lion King. In fact, more likely The Lion King came way later, and is more of a rip-off of it. So, but I wouldn't say it's any of a rip-off. It's just two different stories by two different creators. I wouldn't say otherwise, but I mean, Disney's taken so many stories are not their own. Rarely do they do their own stories. Well, I mean, Mickey Mouse stuff is their own, and so is Goofy, so I can't say that all the time. I mean, I'm nothing against Disney. They do a lot of good films and stuff, but they're not the only creators out there. There are others. Give them some recognition. For heaven's sakes. And not all the stories that Disney does is originally their own. They base it off other things and then take their own take on it. Sorry, I don't want to diss Disney too much. I mean, it's done a lot of good films. It still does a lot of good films. I mean, my favorite out of theirs is Coco from Pixar. And I liked a lot of the Toy Story ones. Grew up with them, so... I mean, I used to like Mickey Mouse and Goofy and all that, so... But, I mean, there are other creators. Anyway, it's many of his stories, Naturally, the organizers wanted materials for the manga, Astro Boy and Kim the White Lion, but he opposed this, insisted that he would create new material specifically for the expedition. Of course, he was way too busy to draw anything extra. However, Tezuka objected, saying, "My manga artworks were drawn only for the purpose of publication and not at all for people to appreciate at a museum." All of us reassured him, explaining that the people really wanted to see his original works, which were cut and pasted and covered with correction fluids. That sounds weird. Maybe I've read that wrong. I am sorry. This episode indicates how manga in Tezuka's time was not accepted as having artistic or cultural value. Rather, it was seen as being alien to art, probably similar to circumstances prevail elsewhere, but particularly in Japan up until now, most manga is treated as a mere entertainment. For example, manga for children has always been criticized by parents and educators. Tezuka, I'm sorry, I am so butchering his name. He needs lots of respect, but I'm trying. But I do respect this guy. I kind of wish I had a chance to meet him, but he died way before I had a chance to meet him, and I was probably much more of an infant when he was alive, so he lived a good life though, I hope. Anywho, sorry. Anyway, but particularly in Japan until now, yada yada yada, I read that line. Tezuka stated that his drawings were not suitable for museum, probably because he understood this prejudice against manga more than anybody. You know, like how most people complain about comics and anime and cartoons and all that not being an art form and stuff, and you know, they give all artists such a hard freaking time, and they say it's only for kids and stuff like that, and it pisses you all off because it's not really true, because there's many engineers. There's some of the cartoons that are for adults now are so down badly because they think adults want mostly gross stuff. Not really. No, we want decent stories and stuff. We don't, with a bit more about adult life when we want adult cartoons. We do not want it to be all gory and stuff about sex and whatever the heck. It's like, who wants that? Who wants all that? I mean, there's probably a few sickos who want that, but they're on the dark side of the web that you should stay away from. I would stay away from them anyway, but anywho, I mean, I'm not here to review anime, and I'm not going to review all cartoons. I'm reviewing the manga and the comics behind them in the books. Because if you want someone who reviews the anime behind the anime, I would suggest Anime America. If you want someone for cartoons, Phantom Striver is actually not too bad either. He's actually does some decent reviews. I mean, and he always, both of them says it's just their opinion, and they do decent reviews, and they don't hate on anyone for liking these things. It just says this is their feelings on these things, which is fine. Especially Phantom Strider, he says that, so that's why I respect him, because he says this is just my personal opinion. I agree with that. This is most of my personal opinions too. I mean, maybe there's still people who have reasons for not liking Tezuka, but I find it very hard for me to believe. But there's always someone out there who doesn't like something, so. Whereas there's always someone who likes something, so. There's people who like some really weird stuff online. Be careful what you look up online, and if you're a kid, what the heck are you doing on the internet without parent supervision? Kids really need to have parent supervision. I wasn't allowed on the internet until I was in my teens. My dad wouldn't let us have internet cable until we were like in our teens. We were not little kids when we were first allowed to get on the internet. So, we were actually not allowed any form of that kind, so a lot of the time it was very innocent what we understood. It's when I finally did start getting to understand what was on the internet and looking that stuff up. I was a teenager, at least to some degree. I had a little bit more understanding. I was still sort of a minor, but you know, I usually knew by then it was my own fault if I looked up something I didn't like. So don't go blaming everyone else. If you were a minor and you've come across this channel and you looked it up, you went, because like half of them have warnings now. They all tell you, oh, kids should not be here. It's not kids' thing. It's not, we're not aiming for kids. I'm not doing, because this is a review about manga and comics, and not all of it's kiddie safe. You really, I mean, if you're looking for a manga for kids or an anime that's for kids, I would recommend maybe Pokemon is okay for kids, because that's, because the games are sort of aimed at kids, so the anime has to stay in the kiddie safe zone, but it can get dark, I guess, in some ways. Whereas, and also like Totoro from Studio Ghibli, Castle Up in the Sky, is that kiddie or is that not? Castle Valley of the Wind I like, but I don't know if that would be kiddie safe. Is that kiddie safe? Well, Ponoko, that's definitely for little kids. It's an anime I would recommend, but like One Piece or My Hero Academia, or Dontoro, or Blackjack, or they're not really aimed at kids. I don't even think Mushishi's that much aimed at little kids, but it's a beautiful manga, and the anime is just as well done. So I'm recommend that. But sorry, I got sidetracked. Sorry. Anywho, but yeah, there's a lot of people who question these things. You are not helping people understand what is and isn't for kids. Like, it's like those people who brought those kids into the Marvel movie for Deadpool. They warned so many parents not to bring it in for kids because it's not a kiddie movie. I mean, geez, the rating on it was M. I think a lot of manga now have a rating on them somewhere that you can, I don't know. Anyway, you have to understand, there are some things there. for certain, like, there's some for older kids, there's some for teenagers, there's some for adults, and then there's things for little kids too, but you have to really make sure you pay attention. Like, when I got into all of these things, my mom was kind of protective, but, you know, it was a good thing she was, because she paid attention to what I was getting into. She'd be, like, asking, what is this? And, you know, she would know, I don't know, I mean, seriously, what kind of parents let their kids unsupervised online to look up things they shouldn't probably be looking up? Seriously, don't let a little toddler online. It's not safe for them. There's weird people on there. I mean, you could try them as best you can. There's, like, get a nanny net to put on to stuff like that. But anyway, sorry, you're hearing me ranting. It's a sore subject for me, because so many of my favorite creators are being given a hard time because somebody's let their little kiddies onto things they shouldn't be letting them on. Like, for instance, Tumblr was not aimed at little kids. I don't even know what minors are doing on there. I mean, teenagers I can understand, but minors, they shouldn't even be on there. It's supposed to be like a teenager or a young adult or an adult. It's not really for little kiddies. That's why I'm so surprised it's gone so downhill now, because of these stupid minors who pretend they're either 18 or so on to get onto these things, and then they go on going, oh, you were supposed to be minding us. Dude, it said it was for someone who's 18, not a minor. For an 18-year-old. Are you 18? What are you doing on the internet? Oh my god, like, what are you doing on Tumblr if you're not 18 years old yet? Because that has got a lot of people in there weird. Anyway, back to this. I am sorry I ranted. Anywho. 500 paid. Let's see. Yeah. Anybody? Yep. And it not only came from the one direction. There were many professional artists then who drew manga for adults, and I have no idea what that word means. For newspapers, maybe I'll just show you the page, because at this point I am butchering some of the words. Can you read any of that? I cannot tell if you can read any of that. Otherwise, I recommend, if you can get this book, get it. But I don't know if you can get it anymore, because this was for an art gallery I managed to get to go to that was held in Sydney, and I was so happy I got to go to it. It was magical. It was so magical. It was the best thing in the world anyway. This guy is brilliant. I saw some of his works and I was like, I want t-shirts with his artworks on it. Like I have for some of my favorite manga. You can tell which one that's for. Okay, let's see. Yes, it was only came from one direction. There were some who were doing for newspapers, and yet they directed similar criticism towards manga for children. Even though they were doing it for adults. Just what I was talking about there a few minutes ago. Apparently, yes, Japan had this problem. Everywhere in the world has this problem. They're stuck thinking comics and cartoons, I mean, they might have started out, but there's things you think when they grow up, they're not going to just want to let go. There's some that still want to watch these things. You have to pay attention. And if you have your kids watching these things and stuff, you have to be sitting there to discuss what some of these things are. Like, especially medicine. If you have your kids watching that, you make sure they're older kids for starters, because it's definitely not good for little kids. There's a lot of graphic in there. I mean, I remember I was a teenager and there was some things in there I was like, did Zoom just rip that kid's eyes out? Yeah, we can all say it's not an innocent kid cartoon. I would say for older kids, but it's awesome. So, seriously, if you want, you've got to start paying attention to the shows your kids are watching. Care Bears, I mean, that's so kiddified and simple. You could let a little toddler watch that one and not really worry about it. I mean, I like some Care Bears, but some of the today's Care Bears ones are not like the old ones that I remember. Way too, mushy. Anywho, I grew up on Care Bears. I liked Care Bears. It is the old ones I liked the episodes of. Do the Care Bear count? Excuse. Anyway, we're not here to be singing the Care Bear song right now. Anywho, so apparently a lot of people at the time was having similar criticism towards manga for children, so his career was constant battle against such basis. He was dealing with a lot of that shit. I mean, glad Japan's gotten over that. They're probably not like that anymore, but he was dealing with that, so he was dealing what the Western side's dealing with at the moment. which is funny because he managed to pave the path so those people after him didn't have that kind of bias in Japan. But outside of Japan, the West still has, and other places of the world still have, this whole thing of if anyone came across blackjack when they were younger, it's because their parents picked it up thinking it was a normal comic to give for kids. And a friend of mine told me when I first got into blackjack, and I was really loving it, he said, oh yeah, it's a good series, but I wish I was a little older when I first got into it, because my mum got it for me thinking it was something just for kids. And I was like, oh god, I can't believe your mum didn't think about that. Anywho, back to anyway, excuse me. Anyway, so yes, he drew over, holy crap, that's a big number. That's 1,000, 5,000, 15,000, or 15,000 million, 15 million? Is it 15 million? Good lord, that's a lot of pages of manga throughout his life. And good lord, this guy must have been a drawing machine. He must have worked really hard at this. Wow. Throughout his life, and he made over 70 animated titles. Yikes. He was a busy man. But quantity is not the most significant factor. Quality was always presented in his themology, engaging and often philosophical work. I must have butchered that word. I am so sorry again. In his work. His stories are far deeper than... Yes, this is true. I've read some of his mangas. I suggested you really gotta read some of his manga. Some animes today could learn a few things more, I think, but a lot of cartoons could learn something from this guy. His stories are far deeper than novels. In fact, to provide such quantity was indeed a sign of Tezuka's genius, but we shouldn't be deceived by this label and underrate his incredible endeavors. Once he was in the studio, he would sleep only 4 to 5 hours a day and would go home only a few times a week. Guys, sleep a bit more. Do not do this, guy. No wonder he died the age he did. He could have lived longer if he slept more. Whoops. So he was like, he only slept for 4 to 5 hours a day and would go home only a few times a week. Dude needs to sleep more. Such was his level of concentration while he created manga. Part of his energy must have been fueled by his love for animation and manga, but his main motive lay elsewhere. In his deep-rooted desire to convey messages to children, for Tezuka, the wonder and importance of life existed everywhere, right down to the small insects and leaves on trees. It expands from humans connecting to all living things. It encompassed our whole planet and eventually the universe itself. The guy did not sleep enough. No wonder he didn't live as long as he needed to. Guys, I know I am probably not the best example. I don't always sleep on time either, but I at least get more than 5 hours of sleep. Please, do take a break and get some sleep. But if you have story ideas, just write them down, and then you can look over them later in the morning and then go to sleep. Just sleep. Make sure you get some sleep and eat, and don't do me in fainting the heat stroke. I did that, and it was not wise. People need breaks. I guess he didn't give himself much time to have a break. No wonder. And he's a well-respected guy, so... The other important message to had for children was to perceive the incredible expressionistic nature of manga. Nobody understood manga infinite potential more than Tezuka. It is often pointed out that he was influenced by movies and Western cartoons and then incorporated cinematic art styles to the medium. But today it is undeniable that his achievement in turn influenced our entire culture in terms of technique and content. Life, death, war, peace, love, hatred, nature, mankind, past, present, future, mascosm, I failed that word, I'm sorry. Tezuka created such a wide spectrum of works that there is probably nothing he left out. He did. But he didn't sleep. Oops! He should have slept more. He might have been able to give us more because In Japan, Tezuka is acknowledged as an artist responsible for introducing deep themes and complex narratives to manga. He brought exhilarating stories to the form. I wish we could have made it possible for you to experience all his incredible stories, because this is where Tezuka's true inspiration lies. But now, finally, in this outstanding expedition at the National Gallery of Victoria, traveling to Sydney and San Francisco, his artistic achievement is formally introducing internationally. It has been our dream to gain this kind of recognition for the cultural status of manga, and for Tezuka, an artist whose life is a constant struggle against the prejudice towards towards his art. We sincerely hope you enjoy the word of Tezuka. Prison Predictions. Yep, that was the book's introduction, and I'm shooting that to Red Dog. Highly recommended this book. But
Remind me when I put the ice cream on. I might make this one next.
oh, that'd be good. I put a bit of lemonade in my tea.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
Getting there. Understood.
Open the window a bit further.
Okay.
Outside is nice. It's a shame you can't open those windows, you know. My dream was always to have one in these new European windows you can open.
Yep.
And the whole thing gets in and out the air then. That's our... Ooh. Not too good. What you gonna do with Mecca for you?
The heat. So everything a little bit to show. Yes. And it is more graphic. Move it. He had a lot of things that was like really wanted to go over with you. I went too far. One other thing. One Piece. Definitely recommend. It's the longest running Shonen Jump manga ever. And worth checking up. But if you're wanting to start the manga series, I would recommend getting one of these big fat ones, which has 3 books in one. And then you can collect a few of them. Because it's a very long series, but it's worth... ignore the stickers. They glow in the dark. It's a very long series. But what I will tell you about this series, it is like, you ever look for a manga or an anime that's got a lot of things, like, for instance, you want a swordsman, it's got one. You want a goofy character that can stretch like rubber, it's got one. You want a character who tells lots of tall tales, it's got one. You want clowns, pirate clowns, who are rather goofy but scary and powerful. Scary, like, you know, powerful, scary clowns. I would suggest this manga has it. You want cute little Dr. Reindeer that can transform into different things. It's got it. You want pretty pirate ladies who are thieves. It's got that too. You want Cybermen. It has got that. There's that one. You want pretty wise ladies who can kick ass. It's got that. You want mermaids. It's got that. You want a cyborg man. It's got that too. You want You want a living, walking skeleton who's a good musician and a great swordsman as well. One Piece has that. I would recommend it, because if you want it for an anime for that sort of thing, and a manga too, it's got that. This anime manga has everything. Oh god. Something in there a few minutes ago. It's got that. I'm selling this to you. This manga, this anime. It has a lot in there. It is worth checking out. It is long, yes, but it's worth checking. And it's the longest running series. Japan had a whole celebration over it. The Shonen Jump had a whole cinema. The Shonen Jump Weekly had a whole celebration over it. It had crossovers celebrating it with some of the others. It is worth checking. Definitely. And if you want a manga that you just want to try to introduce your friends to anime and manga, I would suggest this series, My Hero Academia. I've already mentioned it a few times. I got it for Christmas, some issues I was missing, but I would recommend it. It's just, I recommend this, man. I recommend it big time. Like, I would recommend these. I would also recommend Kakeptushkura if you want to introduce someone to shonen, but I would also recommend Otomen if you want to get someone into the shoujo manga and not make it just all about girls bob and all that. Also, I would recommend some Friends, One Piece, Hanayoko. I recommend this. But One Piece, I would recommend it. It is a good series. You want one that doesn't end so quickly on you, but you kind of leaves you wanting more. It is a good series. I recommend.